Hey everyone, I'm Mariana and I am back with another Game of Thrones episode recap. As always, this is a spoiler discussion, so make sure you're caught up on the show before watching this video. And let's talk about Game of Thrones Season 7, Episode 5. Eastwatch. Chessboard pieces are moving in this episode, very transitional as we're gearing up for the big stuff in the last two episodes of the season. Episodes like Eastwatch aren't always the most exciting to watch because there isn't a lot of action. It's mostly about characters making plans and getting ready to do things, but those episodes are necessary and they did pretty well with this one. There were some really good moments in there. There were some casual but huge reveals, some callbacks to previous episodes, and there was some stuff that I thought was okay. But let's talk about all of that from the very beginning. And before I get into the actual episode, I just want to say I loved seeing the Eastwatch animation in the opening credits. I always love when they add new stuff to that, and I always watch for that. But this one looked particularly good. So the episode picks up right where we left off last time. Jaime and Bronn are just fine, as most of us expected. They even managed to get away from the mayhem, so no to my theory of Jaime being captured, and also no to Jaime getting away from this mess with Cersei. This was definitely his opportunity to leave, but the writers want to keep him around at King's Landing. While I would like to give him credit for his loyalty and bravery, this is blind loyalty that I just can't get behind when Cersei is a horrible person, and he knows she's a horrible person, as well as the fact that they cannot stand against three dragons. But he wants to go back to King's Landing and warn Cersei about all of this, and I am with Bronn on this one. May as well jump back into that river. Jaime does make it back to King's Landing, and he tells Cersei that their chances to defeat Daenerys are as slim as it gets. Obviously, negotiations aren't something Cersei is interested in at the moment because she understands she would have to give up the throne, and she doesn't want to do that. I have to say, it's pretty understandable where she's coming from, and I'm sure most monarchs in her position wouldn't want to just fold right there and then. She knows her chances aren't looking good either way, because if she gives up, she kind of is left with nothing, and if she fights, it's probably not going to end well. So she makes the decision to at least try and go out fighting, which I have to respect. We also see Tyrion walking around the ashes after the battle, and he does not look happy. This conquering business clearly doesn't sit well with him, no matter how much he tries to convince himself that it's for the best and that he can't make decisions for Daenerys, which Varys calls bullshit on later in the episode. I loved that scene, by the way, as he remembers how he used to justify letting horrible things happen when he served the Mad King. Varys wants Tyrion to talk some sense into Daenerys so she doesn't become like her father, and I really like seeing this dynamic between Varys and Tyrion. They both seem a little bit concerned about what they've gotten themselves into with the Dragon Queen, but they also know that there is no way to back out of this at the moment, even if they wanted to. They don't seem like they want to, but they are worried about what's going on, so they're just trying to figure out a way to make the best out of this situation and make sure Daenerys doesn't go full Targaryen on Westeros. Back to the battlefield though, there is an epic shot of Drogon on the hill as Daenerys steps up to make her speech to the remaining soldiers. She says she's not here to murder and she's not like Cersei, but I have a bit of a hard time believing this. Every episode she becomes more ruthless, and this choice that she gives these poor people is pretty much a joke, because bend the knee or die is not a choice. It's an ultimatum, and especially after she shows them that she means what she says by burning the Tarleys, who, by the way, went out with honor. The way I see it, Dany is not that much better than Cersei. She may still have a lot of her humanity left, sure, but just like Cersei, she has no issues taking out all of her enemies with fire, and anyone who isn't actively ready to bend the knee is an enemy, which sounds very familiar to me. Now, I'm not saying, obviously, that Dany should just ask nicely and Cersei is just going to hand over the throne. That's not how things work. But there is a very fine line here between the villain and the heroine, because I think if the roles were reversed, neither of them would act very differently. Later, Dany gets back to Dragonstone, where Jon is conveniently waiting on the cliff, and he decides to make friends with Drogon. I loved this moment. It was really well done. It looked great, and it felt just right emotionally as well. This may not exactly go along with how bonding with dragons works according to George R.R. Martin in the books. However, I really like this idea that dragons would sense that Jon is a Targaryen and be more open to him in a way. And an interesting quote from Daenerys in this scene as well. She says, "The dragons aren't beasts to her, and no matter how terrifying they get to everyone else, they're her children," which is something that calls back to Cersei for me. She had a monster of a child, and she still saw him as her precious little boy. Interesting parallels between these two, in my opinion. They tease Jon's resurrection again in this episode when Daenerys starts asking about the knife to the heart, but before Jon can respond, Ser Jorah shows up, which obviously interrupts the conversation because Dany is very happy to see him. I really liked this reunion. It was good. I keep wondering what this reveal is being saved for, because it really seems like they're making a point of almost revealing it, but then holding back, which to me looks like the writers want to bring it up at a specific point for a specific reason and have it have some impact, which I don't know what that is. Second resurrection, maybe? I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. Later, Jon receives a scroll from Winterfell about Arya, Bran, and the White Walkers, so he wants to leave and fight the dead. Daenerys doesn't want to help because she's afraid of losing her current position, but Tyrion comes up with a brilliant plan to go capture a White and bring it to Cersei as proof of the necessity to focus on the bigger threat. I'm sure nothing will go wrong and this will not blow up in their faces at all. Of course, Jon is the one who wants to lead the raid north of the Wall. Daenerys tries to tell him that she didn't give him permission to leave, but Jon tells her he really wasn't asking. They are definitely pushing this inconvenient attraction dynamic between the two of them, which annoyed me much less this episode for some reason. I think they finally found a way to do it where it's not too cheesy. Particularly, they are making Daenerys make it clear that she is attracted to Jon. Jon seems to be a little bit more focused on other problems, whereas Daenerys this episode definitely gives them a lot of meaningful looks. So Davos smuggles Tyrion into King's Landing so he can meet with Jaime. This reunion was almost perfect. You can just feel the inner struggle with Jaime, and Tyrion is trying to reconnect with his brother. I really wished it was a longer scene though. I was really hoping they would make some progress on a personal level, but the meeting kind of ended up being almost entirely all business, so now I just hope they meet again soon. We get one last scene with Jaime and Cersei as he comes in to talk to her about his meeting with Tyrion, but she is ahead of the game this time around. She already knows, and she is even prepared to discuss a truce with Dany. Why wouldn't she be? This would give her more time to prepare. Maybe Qyburn can figure out some anti-dragon weapon upgrades. This is also where she tells Jaime that she's pregnant. My question is though, could she be lying about the baby just to make sure he is motivated to stick around? She found out that he went and met with Tyrion behind her back, so maybe she wants to solidify Jaime's dedication to her. The way I see it, there are two ways this is going to go down. Either she is lying about the baby and Jaime is going to find out about it, which is going to set him off, and maybe he'll be upset enough to get out of this toxic relationship with Cersei, or there is a baby, but she's going to lose the baby, and that is going to drive her even crazier, in which case she will do something horrible once again and finally set off Jaime to kill her. Why don't I think they're going to be a happy family? Well, partly because Maggie the Frog's prophecy said that she's going to have 3 children, and she already had those, so one way or another, this baby is just not happening. But mostly because we are way too close to the end of the entire series, and there's just not enough time for this to be a legitimately developed plot line, so I think this is setting up some quick payoff, and it is not going to be a happy kind of payoff. Now, while Tyrion was meeting with Jaime, Davos went to find Gendry, which to me felt like total fan service. He even says, "I thought you might still be rowing." Come on, Game of Thrones. If this was a sitcom, sure, winks to the audience like that, acknowledging that they're paying attention to what people are saying. That's fun, but this is a fantasy show that takes itself seriously and wants to be taken seriously by the audience, so this type of stuff just takes me right out of the show. And I'm also not somebody who needed any kind of closure on Gendry's storyline to begin with. We last saw him rowing away. He got away from the mess. Good for him. What other ending do we need? Why bring him back from the storytelling point of view? And immediately we see him being a pro with his hammer, just like his father, when he takes out those gold cloaks, just so everyone knows that Gendry is awesome, before he joins Jon and Jorah on their white capturing mission. Maybe I'm wrong, and George R. R. Martin has some epic plans for Gendry's character in the last 2 books, which I doubt, but even if that's the case, the way the showmakers presented this and reintroduced him into the show really felt like fan service to me. Anyways, before they leave Dragonstone, Dany gives Jon some final looks, and he tells her, "I wish you good fortune in the wars to come," which are famous last words from 2 characters already. First from Mance Rayder, right before he was burned alive, then in a Tower of Joy flashback from Arthur Dayne just before he gets killed. So is this a bad sign for Jon Snow? Is he getting killed again potentially? Good thing they brought Thoros with them, because he can bring him back again if something bad happens. At Winterfell, Bran is spying on the White Walkers through the eyes of the Ravens, and that army of the dead looks pretty massive. This is getting me even more hyped for the upcoming action next episode. Bran wants to send out ravens to warn people around Westeros as if they're going to listen. Then we get these northern houses saying that the king in the north should stay in the north, and how they kind of wish they chose Sansa to rule them, which, like, what is wrong with these people? Aren't northerners supposed to be loyal? Why would they turn on Jon so quickly? This doesn't make any sense. It's not like he's taking a vacation somewhere. He is actively working towards protecting his people. Also, we get some Arya versus Sansa drama, which is pretty silly because Arya is judging Sansa for taking the chamber of their parents, but why wouldn't she? She's the Lady of Winterfell and their parents are dead, so this is a nonsense complaint. Even Arya should be able to figure this out. And then there is the cutting off heads thing that she brings up. I am personally on Sansa's side in this scene. I have no idea why writers are creating this unnecessary drama between the 2 of them. I get that they've never really liked each other because they've had different goals, but after everything they've been through, they're still sisters, and it's not like Arya ever wanted to be Lady of Winterfell, so what is this all about? They are probably just doing this so later they can have them unite against Baelish, which is fine, but make it make sense. And speaking of Baelish, Arya is spying on him. Her instincts about something being off here are correct, but Baelish knows what he's doing. Now that I think of it, he's probably also the one behind these lords saying things about Jon being gone in front of Sansa earlier this episode. Anyway, Arya sees him with a scroll, and once Baelish leaves, she goes to look for it. This is actually the letter Sansa wrote to Robb back in season 1, if you remember, the one Cersei made her write. Arya thinks she's spying on Baelish and discovering something he doesn't want her to know, but actually Baelish is keeping an eye on her and setting up this sibling rivalry. I would like to be worried about this, and earlier in the show I probably would have been worried, but at this point I think it's pretty clear that Baelish is going to end up on the losing side. At the Citadel, the Maesters are discussing one of those messages Bran has sent out with the news about the White Walkers. Of course, they are pretty dismissive of it, and even though Sam claims to have seen the Army of the Dead, they're not just going to believe all of that. Later, we get a quick Sam and Gilly scene where Gilly drops the biggest bomb of the episode as she reads about a marriage annulment for Prince Rhaegar and a secret marriage to someone, obviously to Lyanna Stark, which means Jon is no longer a bastard.
I'm a bastard.
No, Jon. Too bad Sam wasn't paying too much attention since he was mad at the Maesters at that point. I'm sure Gilly will remember it though and bring it up at the proper moment. Sam makes the decision to drop out of Maester School and try to make a difference in the world. The last scene is at Eastwatch where Tormund wants to know why Jon didn't bring Brienne, which is a legitimate question. I would definitely bring Brienne. She is an amazing fighter and she has a Valyrian steel sword, so that's useful. We also see that the Hound, Thoros, and Beric are there. Basically, a bunch of people, half of whom are at various stages of disliking each other, unite to go on a mission beyond the wall. How many of them are coming back alive? What do you guys think? Game of Thrones has always had the devastating episode 9, but since this season only has 7 episodes, that means the penultimate episode is coming up next and bad things are going to happen. I am absolutely sure someone is not coming back from this mission, probably more than one person. I am most concerned about Tormund. First of all, because I love Tormund and I don't want anything to happen to him, but he seems like a very possible casualty to me for some reason. There's also a quick shot in the preview for the next episode of what looks like the Hound swinging Gendry's hammer. I'm not 100% sure on this because it's a very quick shot, so you are welcome to investigate and tell me what you think, but did they bring Gendry back on the show just to kill him off? Because why would the Hound have his hammer? Anyways, I'm going to be very surprised if there aren't multiple casualties next episode. And yeah, it has me concerned, but I'm also very excited because I'm finally getting the White Walker action and I have been waiting for this pretty much since Hardhome, which is one of my favorite episodes of the entire show. That's it for this recap and review. Let's talk about the episode in the comments below. As always, please keep the production spoilers to yourself, but as far as the preview for the next episode goes and your theories based on what has happened so far, all of those are welcome in the comments below. I would love to discuss the episode and the show in general with you. Thank you so much for watching. As always, I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I hope you're having an awesome day, and I will see you soon in my next video. Bye!